Well, the Labor honeymoon has certainly been short-lived. They've had disaster after disaster. You had the likes of David Lammy having these unsuccessful meetings with Joe Biden. Tell us about that. Tell me about how that's being reported in the UK. And I noticed Lammy showed up to this meeting wearing sneakers. I mean, surely if you're meeting the leader of the free world, put on some nice dress shoes.
Yeah, I mean, David Lammy is a funny character. I mean, he called the Eurosceptic part of the Conservative Party Nazis, and when asked about it, he doubled down on it even more. So he's a strange figure. He's somebody who is, I think, another embarrassing figure for the UK government, because he withdrew an objection for Benjamin Netanyahu to be arrested. And then he went to Israel, clamoring for an audience with Benjamin Netanyahu, and he was basically snubbed, and he had to just return back. Again, very embarrassing for the foreign secretary. He's gone over to America. He's parading himself like some kind of statesman, but the reality is he is diminished Britain on the world stage, primarily because of stopping arms to Israel. That's a big deal. And he's done that not for judicial reasons of human rights and international law, as he claims, but to appease the Muslim vote in Britain, which the Labour Party is very concerned about.
James.
Mayuran, I want to ask you to go back to just Keir Starmer and how he's going with a lot of things that really make me think that he actually just really doesn't like the British people very much. And I'm talking about the latest sort of war on pensioners push, where they're going to cancel these fuel credits that pensioners were going to get. Now, in opposition, his own study found that this could lead to 4,000 deaths. But now it's like they're almost gleeful about doing anything to punish and screw down pensioners, old British people. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so last time I was on your show, I talked about the broken contract with the ordinary working class who are concerned about borders and mass migration. He's now moved on to breaking the contract with the elderly. Previously, the Labour government used to champion the winter fuel allowance because it's a necessary thing, it was a compassionate thing to do. But what's happened now is he's cut it, and the veneer of compassion that the left Labour Party used to have has been completely ripped apart. And they are now the nasty party. And it's not just for cutting the winter fuel allowance, it's the way that they've done it. They said they had no choice. But the reality is, manifesto after manifesto in previous campaigns, they protected the winter fuel allowance. But in this manifesto, they deliberately didn't protect the winter fuel allowance, which suggests this was premeditated. They then went into government and declared there was a 22 billion black hole in the finances, which has got nothing to do with the 10 billion pounds they spent on the union's inflation pay-busting deals. It has got nothing to do with the 11.5 billion they spent on foreign climate aid. This 22 billion black hole is apparently due to the previous Conservative Party. When asked for details, they refuse to give them. So we don't know what to do. And they basically have said that one of the only ways they're forced to cut the winter fuel allowance to help plug this black hole. The winter fuel allowance will only save 1.5 billion. And get this, one of the ministers of the Labour Party said, if we did not cut the winter fuel allowance, there would be a run on the pound and the economy would collapse. I've never heard such a barefaced lie to the British people. And they've said, if you're struggling, if you're a pensioner who's struggling, you can fill in this form and we'll give you some extra benefits. The problem is this form has about 240 questions and is unlikely to be processed. And even if there are 800,000 pensioners who would benefit from this extra tax break, this extra allowance, if they would all apply, it would negate the saving made by cutting the winter fuel allowance in the first place. So the whole thing is a fiasco. And apart from the pensioners themselves, the Labour backbenchers are enraged because their constituents are filling their email inbox pleading with them not to do this. They are well and truly the nasty party of Britain.
They certainly are, Mayuran, and I'd go beyond that and say they're the evil party, because at the same time as they're denying old age pensioners and so on heating, much of it driven by mad climate change ideology. They're pouring in immigrants and giving them mobile phones and accommodation in hotels and all the rest of it, characters coming from all around the world. Absolutely disgraceful. Just quickly, Myron, Suella Braverman, who I always thought, along with Kemi Badenoch, was the hope of the side for the Tories. She made an interesting comment the other day on white privilege. Have a listen.
This concept of white privilege is a nonsense to me. Say that to the white working class boys in Britain who are the most underachieving when it comes to literacy and numeracy and school outcomes.
How's this message received, Myron?
Well, there's always going to be people who are going to be triggered by this, but she's absolutely right. I mean, we have an ethnic minority, an Indian origin Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. If you look at the cabinet of the Conservative Party who were in government recently, many of them were of an ethnic minority. We have whole towns and some cities even where the white population are in a minority. You'll have, as Suella Braverman mentioned, white working class boys are the most left behind of all groups. And then you have the whole grooming gang scenario, which Suella Braverman brought up again, which everyone needs to understand. White working class girls were allowed to be abused on an industrial scale in the most abominable, horrific way possible. And the reason why justice was not served by social workers, by police officers, by community members, by MPs, the reason why justice was not served was because everybody was scared of being called racist, right? And so to say that our country is a racist country is unbelievable. So this idea of white privilege needs to be firmly put in the bin. Instead, I believe we need to be looking a little bit at brown privilege or black privilege, because there are certain things that are becoming overly normalized, where it is becoming okay to turn on the white man, the white woman, and cast them aside and cast insults and treat them in a certain way. And that's what the grooming gang scenario really highlights. And so Suella Braverman is absolutely right. But of course, she's always going to trigger some people.
Mayuran Senthilnathan, fantastic to chat to you again, and we'll chat to you very soon. And you're absolutely right. Brown privilege, black privilege, you've opened a whole argument there. Fantastic stuff. Great, we'll chat to you in a couple of weeks. So good. They're from London.